The rain fell heavy against the tin roof of the old house, making a sound that echoed like slow beating drums. Emily's family had just moved into the countryside. The house was cheap, too cheap. Her father had called it a lucky find. But from the first night, Emily felt eyes watching her. While exploring the attic, she found a small box covered in dust. Inside, wrapped in yellowed newspaper, was a strange doll. Its head was too large for its tiny body. The painted grin stretched wider than any normal mouth. Sharp little teeth peeked out from the smile. Its black, button-like eyes seemed alive, gleaming even in the dim light. On the back of its head, a name was carved. Labubu. Emily thought it was ugly, but something about it made her chest tighten. She shoved the doll back into the box and tried to forget it. But that night, the sound of scratching woke her. It was coming from her wardrobe. Her heart hammered as she turned toward the sound. The door of the wardrobe rattled slowly, as though something inside was trying to push its way out. She couldn't move. She couldn't even scream. Then, silence. The next morning, Emily's younger brother, Ethan, came running into her room. His eyes were wide. "Emily, the doll. It was in my bed last night." Her stomach dropped. "What doll?" She lied, already knowing the answer. "The one with the big teeth." That evening, Emily checked the attic. The box was empty. From then on, strange things happened in the house. At night, they heard footsteps in the hallway, soft and quick like a child running. Shadows darted in corners. The sound of giggling echoed through the walls. One night, their father grew angry. He thought the children were pranking him. He grabbed the Labubu doll when it appeared on the dining table and threw it into the fireplace. The flames roared, devouring the ugly thing until it was nothing but ashes. But when morning came, Labubu sat on the kitchen counter, its grin wider than before, its eyes gleaming darker, almost wet. After that, things worsened. Their mother woke with scratches across her arms. Ethan claimed Labubu whispered to him at night, asking him to play. Doors slammed on their own. Dishes shattered. The smell of rotting flesh filled the rooms. Emily tried to research the doll. An old neighbor finally told her the truth. Years ago, a family lived in that house. They had a daughter who played with that same doll. But the girl died mysteriously, her face frozen in a scream. Her parents went mad, and no one ever saw them again. Only the doll remained. People say it feeds on fear, growing stronger with every scream in the night. Emily knew then they had to leave. But Labubu would not let them go. On their last night in the house, Emily woke to see the doll sitting on her chest, its tiny hands pressing down. Its teeth stretched impossibly wide, and its voice was no longer childlike. It was deep, guttural, and cruel. "Mine," it hissed. Her scream echoed through the walls. When the neighbors came the next morning, the house was silent. Inside, the family was gone. The only thing left was the Labubu doll, sitting at the dining table, grinning with blood smeared around its teeth. Victor Mallory had always been a collector. His house in upstate New York was more museum than home, lined wall-to-wall with glass cases filled with antique dolls, wind-up toys, and rare figurines. He had been obsessed with collecting since childhood, when his grandmother gave him a tiny porcelain clown she claimed had been haunted. That spark of fascination never died. It only grew, until every dollar Victor earned went into chasing strange artifacts. One rainy evening, while scrolling through an obscure auction website, Victor's heart skipped. The headline read, "Rare Labubu doll, only one known to exist." The picture showed a doll unlike any he'd ever seen. Its head was grotesquely large compared to its thin body. Its mouth was carved in a sharp grin, revealing rows of tiny teeth that looked far too real. The black eyes seemed glassy, but there was depth in them, as if something peered out from within. Beneath the listing was a warning written in red. "Do not keep it in the dark. Do not speak to it after midnight. Do not, under any circumstances, stare into its eyes for more than 10 seconds." Victor chuckled to himself. Some seller trying to spook buyers. He placed his bid. 2 weeks later, the package arrived. The box was surprisingly heavy for such a small doll. Inside, wrapped in old newspaper that smelled faintly of mildew, was the Labubu doll. Victor lifted it carefully, his pulse quickening. It was even stranger in person. The grin seemed carved deeper, the teeth sharper. Its little arms and legs were jointed like a marionette, and the stitching on its clothes looked hand-sewn, old-fashioned. He set it on his display shelf in his study, directly under the overhead light. "Perfect edition," he whispered. That night, he dreamed of children's voices. They were faint, distant, like echoes down a long hallway. The voices weren't laughing or singing, they were crying. When Victor woke, the Labubu doll was on his nightstand. Victor frowned, picking it up. How the hell? He must have moved it in his sleep, he reasoned. Maybe he'd gotten up during the night. He returned it to the study. But the next morning, it was back, sitting neatly on his kitchen counter, facing him as he made coffee. By the third day, Victor felt uneasy. He decided to test it. He locked the doll in a cabinet with a padlock before going to bed. At 3:12 a.m., Victor woke to the sound of scratching. It was faint at first, then louder, insistent. He turned on his lamp. The cabinet was rattling. The padlock clicked once, twice, then dropped to the floor. The door creaked open. The doll stepped out. Victor's breath caught in his throat. He blinked hard, and in that instant, the doll was gone, back on his shelf in the study, grinning as though nothing had happened. He didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Victor's obsession deepened. He began researching the doll online. References were scarce, but he pieced together fragments. Tales of a European craftsman who had made only one Labubu doll in the 1800s. Children who owned it vanished mysteriously. The toy was said to feed on fear, growing stronger with every household it haunted. The warnings began to feel less like a joke, but he couldn't resist. Something about the doll drew him in. He found himself sitting in his study late at night, staring into its black eyes despite the seller's warning. When he did, his reflection in the glassy orbs didn't look quite right. His face would distort, his mouth wider, his skin pale, his eyes sunken. Once, he swore the reflection smiled before he did. By day, he became paranoid. He stopped answering calls, stopped meeting friends. He caught himself whispering to the doll, asking it questions. "Where are you from? Why me? What do you want?" And sometimes, though he couldn't explain how, he thought he heard answers. One night, Victor awoke to a voice. "Victor!" He sat up in bed, his throat dry. The voice was high-pitched, sing-song, childlike. "Play with me, Victor." He turned. The Labubu doll sat at the foot of his bed, its glassy eyes reflecting the moonlight. Its grin stretched wider, impossibly wide now. Victor grabbed the doll, heart pounding. He shoved it into a wooden chest, nailed it shut, and locked the chest in his basement. "Stay there," he muttered. For 3 nights, the house was silent. He thought maybe he'd beaten it. On the 4th night, the smell started. Rot, damp earth, something foul drifting up from the basement. When Victor finally opened the basement door, his stomach lurched. Muddy footprints, small, childlike, covered the floor, circling the nailed chest. The chest lid was splintered from the inside, and the doll was gone. That night, Victor dreamed again of children crying. But now, he recognized the voices. They weren't distant anymore. They were right outside his bedroom door. Victor called in a local historian the next morning, an old man named Richard Langley who studied cursed artifacts. Richard stepped into Victor's cluttered study, his face pale when he saw the empty space on the shelf. "You bought it," Richard whispered. "God help you." "Bought what?" Victor demanded. "The Labubu. That thing isn't just a doll. It's a vessel. In the 1800s, a toy maker in Massachusetts lost his children in a fire. They say he tried to bring them back, trapped their souls in a creation. But what came back wasn't his children. It was something else. Something hungry." Victor's chest tightened. "How do I stop it?" Richard shook his head. "You don't. Labubu doesn't leave. It moves from owner to owner, feeding until there's nothing left. Your only choice is to pass it on. Sell it. Give it away. Let it become someone else's curse." Victor froze. Could he really condemn someone else? That night, the voices came again. Louder. Children giggling, whispering, crying, all at once. Shadows flickered on the walls though no light source was there. The doll returned to his nightstand. This time, it spoke clearly. "Give me someone else, or I'll keep you." Victor sat in his study for hours, staring at the doll. His hands trembled as he typed up a new online auction listing. Rare Labubu doll, antique collectible. He copied the original warning word for word. He even uploaded new photos. Within a day, there were bidders. By the end of the week, the doll was shipped to a buyer in California. Victor exhaled in relief. For the first time in weeks, his house was silent. But peace did not last. The night after the doll was shipped, Victor checked his study. The glass cases were empty. Every doll, every figurine he had collected for years was gone. The shelves were bare. And then he heard it. Dozens of tiny footsteps upstairs. The faint sound of laughter. Victor climbed the stairs slowly, sweat dripping down his back. At the end of the hallway, his bedroom door stood open. Inside, lined along the walls, were all his toys. But they weren't still. They were moving, turning their heads, twitching their arms, grinning with sharp teeth where there hadn't been any before. And in the center of the room sat Labubu, back from California, its grin wider than ever. Victor realized then the truth. It wasn't just the Labubu that was cursed. He was. By feeding it, by keeping it, by selling it, he had bound himself to it forever. The children's voices rose to a deafening scream as the dolls closed in. The next morning, Victor's house was found abandoned. The shelves were full again, every toy back in its place. Only one thing was missing, Victor Mallory himself. And somewhere, deep inside the black eyes of Labubu, a faint reflection could be seen. A man's face, twisted in terror, screaming soundlessly, trapped forever.